have done a little bit of educake. By little, I mean an obsessively absurd amount. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I've done more questions than you and all your friends combined. If educake was a sport, I'd be arrested for doping allegations. But how did I get here? Why did I spend a significant chunk of my Year 11 life farming 330,000 questions on a science revision site? What even is educake? Presumably, teachers see it as a low-stakes quizzing platform that provides streamlined assessment and feedback for revision and homework, which translated from edtech language into English means it allows teachers to get more than 2 hours of sleep each night and lets them see their family more than once per year. Low stakes simply means you won't be publicly humiliated when you fail, which is great for teachers because it lets them set overlapping quizzes without worrying the students' results. Don't worry, it doesn't count to your grade, it's to check your knowledge, is what they always say. Overall, it is good for teachers. They have a lot to do. Students see it in one of two ways. Firstly, some see it as a brilliant revision tool that finds holes in their knowledge. educake for them gently nudges them toward the right topics to revise, and lets them repeat questions until secure. They see it as a robotic revision companion, structured, infinitely patient, and accessible. It doesn't sigh or roast them when they inevitably fail. For them, it is a ritual of spaced learning. They have ascended beyond the mortal plane of cramming and see the light. They believe knowledge is built up, like a beach, one little grain at a time, one feedback box at a time. Alternatively, some see it as an Iron Maiden that bludgeons you to death using multiple choice questions. It just keeps calmly, politely waterboarding you with questions until you forget what life feels like. It doesn't punish because that violates the low-stakes requirement, it just repeats. To me, using educake felt less like revision and more like psychological torture. It ticks all the boxes. Learned helplessness. Tick. When you realize you will get 60% on the quiz no matter how many times you retry, you realize that educake is beyond your control. You have a growing sense of realization that you will never learn osmosis. Sensory deprivation? Absolutely. Staring at the same bland purple rounded buttons and blank white text box doesn't really help with this. The font, VAG Rundschrift, is so inoffensive it apologizes first before appearing on the page. And it better apologize for its use on educake as well. Isolation? For educake, revision become a solitary confinement session. Just you, tab, and your sanity begging you to stop. You never know when it will end, as the time blurs. Your sense of self is eroded continuously until you are just another statistic on your teacher's screen. I think you can guess which group of students I fell into. So let's start with my personal reasons for farming 330,000 questions on educake. It was in the summer term of 2024 that I heard that one of the science teachers, Mr. Barnett, was making a graph of questions done on educake versus score in exams or something similar, sort of like the one shown on screen now. The sort they might end up showing parents at parents' evening to show, look, the more educake questions you do, the better your child performs in exams. A response to that, wait, this website costs 30 copies of Minecraft per year, as proof to us that this website actually did something other than give the pastoral support workers a job. Naturally, I joked to my friends that I would try my hardest to sabotage his graph by making one anomaly which had so many questions done that it would compress the graph to the point that any correlation would be meaningless, like the XKCD comic shown on screen now. I would make the y-axis beg for mercy. I would commit statistical war crimes. I would create the statistical equivalent of a jump scare, squishing all the rest of the data into a sad horizontal flatline in the bottom of the graph. Think of it like this. If Mr. Barnett was building a nice sandcastle of data, I would become the tsunami and ruin his day. I'd be the Shiva of correlation, destined to bring graphical anarchy. The second reason was a little stupid, but it went like this. Every month, the science department, again primarily Mr. Barnett, made a little leaderboard to display in the science block corridor of the 10 people with the most educate questions done that month. It was quite wholesome to encourage a little healthy competition. For many, it was a harmless celebration of academic achievement. In fact, my chemistry teacher encouraged us to get onto the leaderboard. In a homework task, she said verbatim, "Get your name to the top of the educate list. Prize is to be won." Most students saw it and thought, ooh, maybe I'll do an extra quiz or two. I saw it and it became a personal mission to grind my way to the top like a Victorian chimney sweep with Wi-Fi. I would fight off the competition as if it was the Hunger Games, except I wouldn't the one fighting. But she had made one crucial mistake. You see, she never specified the means to get onto the leaderboard, only the numbers mattered. So if I hypothetically was caught, I could explain that she never said that we had to do the questions manually. In addition, at that time, 2 of my classmates, Jaden and Naomi, had their names on the leaderboard 1 month. When I saw that, as with language nut a video about that will come out later, I had a primal instinct to get my name onto the leaderboard with so many bloody questions done that everybody else would pale in comparison. I needed 1 or 2 orders of magnitude more than everybody else. I wanted my numbers to look like a typo compared to everybody else, like Mr. Barnett fell asleep on his keyboard whilst compiling the leaderboard. I wanted to make the leaderboard so overinflated Venezuela in 2018 would look stable. I was not just going to win, I was going to absolutely dominate, and for no other reason than it was funny. And finally, and probably most importantly, educake homework was annoying. Naturally, as a lazy programmer, I didn't like to do tasks manually. I was simply sick of getting 100-question quizzes. Every month or so, I would get a jump scare when you have one quiz due in a week's time appeared on the educake dashboard. I hated educake quizzes. They were slow, time-consuming, tedious, but worse still, they didn't teach me anything. With each question, I could feel a part of my soul escaping. One time, out of pure frustration and with zero shame, I pasted the entire B-movie script into a what went well on this quiz reflection box and got a diplomatic reply out of Mr. Barnett. I don't think this is a helpful use of your time or my time. Ironic, because the quiz wasn't either. But one redeeming quality of educake was that each time you get a question wrong on educake, it gives you the correct answer and a little explanation. Instant feedback. Although it was originally intended to help students understand why they got a question wrong, it was the one weakness I could exploit. So I devised a plan. I would firstly write a script capable of doing questions automatically, getting them wrong and scraping the answer from the instant feedback. Secondly, it would store a record of the questions and answers in a little database. From there, the possibilities were innumerable. I could just look up the answer in my JSON file of educate wisdom. Or better still, just use the same script to autocomplete it for me. It wouldn't technically be cheating. It was just industrially mechanical, weaponized laziness with dystopian efficiency. No answers would be stolen, no data would be created from thin air. Every byte of data would be earned through systematic and painstaking failure and feedback. Now I just had to wait for somebody who was willing to sacrifice their question accuracy and a time where I could farm without being noticed. After asking a few friends, hey, could I borrow your educake account and tank your accuracy for scientific purposes? Most of them gave me the sort of response that you would give to a man on the tube asking to borrow your shoes. But eventually, one person gave me permission. For privacy reasons, I will say that his name rhymes with Grilliam Clay. Now it was a matter of time. I had to wait for a school holiday to get a block of free time so that I could devote days to filling in questions and staying on standby in case the script got stuck. In fact, I chose a holiday to avoid Mr. Barnett getting suspicious. I didn't want him logging on during the day and finding out that Grilliam was doing thousands of questions per hour. I realized I would have the October half-term, one entire week which I could use to farm educake on. 9.5 days counting the Friday evening and weekend before. The script itself was a crime against software engineering, but functional. It seems that I started to cobble together some shoddily written JavaScript at the start of October, judging by the date stamp on the code I sent to myself on Gmail. It had 3 parts. 1 to read the question text from the HTML, 1 to answer questions, and 1 to rip the correct answer and store it safely. The first part was easy, nothing a couple lines of jQuery couldn't solve. The second part checked if the current question was in my database. If it was, great, it would type or click the correct answer. If it wasn't there, it would make an uneducated guess, either the text 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or simply clicking on the first option available to hopefully get the correct answer from the server. This part broke quite a lot, and removing corrupted answers that weren't a multiple choice option made me want to tear my hair out. The third part broke even more though. It would click the button, then wait for the server to respond and give me the instant feedback I desired. After that, it would rip the answer from the website HTML and store it next to the question text in my database. When it stopped breaking and started working, it slowly collated an archive of every single answer on educake formed through failure and improvement. In the end, it didn't just answer questions. It learned. After some initial testing, it seemed as if it would work. Until it didn't. These were just some of the problems I encountered. Firstly, the correct answer was sometimes embedded inside another tag, which allowed stray span tags to enter my database. Secondly, the timing was sometimes a little bit too optimistic, which meant my script tried to scrape an answer before the server responded, replacing the answer with undefined. Another problem was that different questions could have the same question text but refer to different diagrams. For example, while the question might say what is arrow pointing to, one time it be a mitochondrion, and the next it be a wind turbine. My script simply didn't account for that. But one quick fix later, the dictionary key included the question text, the image URL, and all the options available for multiple choice questions. I actually hashed all of the parts with MD5 crypto nerds and appended them together for the key to provide a little plausible deniability by making it impossible to reverse the hash and get the question text. Terrible as MD5 is for crypto, I highly doubt the educake questions were designed to give hash collisions. And if you're sad enough to use a rainbow table to reverse the hashes for extra revision, you need to see a doctor first to find help and secondly go outside, even if that is coming from me. And so the farming began on the Thursday night before half term. Sitting behind my screen, I used a JavaScript set interval to automatically mine the answers on a 2-second loop, and I scraped the first few units in educake. By the next day, Grilliam Clay was number 1 on the October leaderboard with 1,800 questions to his name, and other confused students suspecting that something was up. But come Friday evening, I was back at home on my computer, looking up to check the tab every 30 seconds, checking whether the script was stuck on some random question. And then I hit the next problem. I was going back to double check some answers when it seemed that my database's answers seemed to be vanishing. Previously farmed answers were dropping out of my database, replaced by undefineds. A bit of cursing and disparate pointing at my screen later, I realized the problem. When the answer was input correctly, the instant feedback wouldn't show the correct answer because it would be pointless to show me the correct answer when I already knew. However, my script still tried to scrape the response, as the instant feedback box wasn't there. JavaScript helpfully stopped my script crashing by introducing an undefined. At this point, maybe about 10% of my database was corrupted. It wasn't a large problem though, as I had backups and I hadn't done that much. A quick fix later, and a quick redo of the questions later, I got it working again. But once I had a working script, a fresh account with barely any questions done, and glorious week to farm up every single question, I could now officially begin. Next, we would go way beyond a mere prototype, because a bot this powerful really needs to be put to full potential. The era of the bot was about to begin.